Hello, this is Pastor Carl Gallups, and thank you so much for watching this Insight video. There's a fascinating article that has appeared on the Drudge Report today that is, in my opinion, one more evolutionary science, and I use quotes for that, science fail. It is about the Flores man. Let me give you a quick update. The Flores man were some archaeological remains, 9 skeletons or partial skeletons, and then 1 full skull. But of course, teeth were missing, and they had to recreate parts of the skull and the teeth. But anyway, these were discovered in Indonesia in 2003. The problem is that these skeletons were only 3.5 feet tall, and they were very human-like in many respects, and they also had characteristics of chimpanzees and apes in other respects. And so back in 2003, they declared it to be some kind of great evolutionary find, perhaps the missing link, and just another missing link. But in the meantime, this whole case has been filled with intrigue and all kinds of speculation, scientific speculations, evolutionary speculations. But the article appearing today, I'm going to show you the one out of the UK Sun, but it has also been repeated, the information from the official pronouncements of the archaeologists and the doctors and the researchers that are involved. It has been featured in several mainstream media posts around the nation, around the world. But the deal is, they're now saying that they know for a fact, it's been proven for a fact, that this is not some mere modern human skeleton. It's not human at all. It's a completely different species, a completely new species. Wait till you see this article. Wait till you see the artist renditions. And then listen, I want you to listen to the mushy, magical language that these so-called scientific articles and research papers use. This is amazing, folks. If we who are Christians and biblical, we come from a biblical worldview, if the Bible contained language like this mushy, mystical, magical language, and or if we spoke that way in trying to defend our faith, we would be excoriated. Yet, the evolutionist can get away with it in the fake news. I'm going to show you more examples of fake news. They can get away with it, and it's declared science. You're not going to believe what you see next, and I'm glad to show it to you. Thank you again for watching this.
All right, here we go. Let's start with the Drudge Report, and there it is. This is today's Drudge Report, April the 21st, 2017, election weekend, France. And of course it just refreshed right in front of me, but as we come down the page, we're struck with this image. Almost looks like an ET, doesn't it? Well, anyway, it's entitled Ancient Hobbit, Not Human. Entirely different species. So, of course, we get the understanding from looking at this title and the picture that, oh my gosh, there's some kind of human-like creature that has lived on the planet, but it is a totally different species and it's definitely not human. All right, so when you click on the link, you come to the UK Sun article, and listen to this. Now, it's a very short article, but I want you to notice the artist renditions as we go through. Also want you to hear the mushy, magical language. It's language that says we think, or we speculate, or our theory is, or it could have been, or most likely this is how it occurred. That's mushy, magical language. In other words, you don't know anything. You're guessing, and you're hoping. And that's okay to do, but call it that. Don't declare that you now have scientific proof and science settles it. This is what evolution does all the time. It's fake news, it's mushy, magical language, and it's hoping and wishing based upon some bone fragments. This happens all the time. Here is yet another one, the Flores man. All right, Flores man, hobbits, they're calling them. By the way, the guy that invented the word hobbit is now considering some legal action against them for stealing his word from his books and movies. But anyway, Flores man, hobbits, found in Indonesia were definitely not, big bold letters, early humans. Scientists confirm. Of course, if scientists confirm, And then it goes on to say, researchers discover that strange hobbits were not early human dwarves, but an entirely different species. All right, very, very sensational, but you see the headlines declaring definitively, settled scientifically. All right, and then you continue to read. A tiny human race was recently discovered in Indonesia, was not an early human, but an entirely different species, scientists have found. There it is again. And then the ancient hobbits, they said, who would have stood 3.5 feet tall, were found on the island of Flores in 2003. And there's an artist rendition. I mean, boy, that's pretty detailed, coming from some bone fragments and a partial skull. But then it goes on to say, experts initially believed that the Homo floresiensis, or Flores man, were just a shrunken variety of early humans. And by the way, science is still out on that. I'll explain in a moment. It says, but a study by the Australian National University found the race, watch this, were most likely a completely different species. All right, that's mushy, magical language. Were most likely. Okay, but all of the headlines we've read so far says it's 100% settled. It's not a human. It is a completely different species because scientists say, but watch this language. This language is used throughout the article. Where most likely, researchers think they were related to a sister species, one of the earliest known found in Africa 1.75 million years ago. There's more mushy language. That's never been proven. It can't be proven. Now, look at another artist rendition. Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, it's rather sexual. Second of all, it's horrific looking. Thirdly, it is an artist rendition. This came out of somebody's mind. They didn't find anything like this. They took the fragments and they constructed this artist rendition to make us think that, and look how humanoid it looks. Way more human than ape-like. So what are they trying to say? It's not a human, yet they draw a humanoid rendition of it. An X-rated humanoid rendition of it. Here's what they're trying to say. They're proudly showing this skull, and you'll see in a few moments how it was recreated and damage that was done to it. But anyway, let me see. She said, the analyses show that on the family tree, Homo floresiensis was likely a sister species. See, if they just used this mushy language once or twice, it wouldn't be so bad. But the entire article is filled with, we think, we believe, more than likely, most likely, was likely, our theory is, all right? And then it goes on to say, it means these two shared a common ancestor. There we go, still looking for the missing link. And then, watch this, it's possible that this Flores man evolved in Africa and migrated, or the common ancestor moved from Africa, then evolved into Homo floresiensis somewhere. Okay, so it's possible. In other words, they don't know. Then they go on to say, Dr. Argue said the analysis also supported the theory that Flores man could have branched off earlier in the timeline, more than 1.75. In other words, they don't know anything about this. Watch this. If this was the case, Flores man would have evolved before the earliest Homo habilis, which would make it very archaic indeed. If this was the case, they don't know. All right, there's the partial skull, the only skull that was nearly complete. And then it goes on to say, Professor Mike Lee of Flinders University and South Australian Museum, all right, he said, when we did the analysis, there was really clear support for the relationship with Homo habilis. And then it says, then he goes on to declare the Flores man occupied a very primitive position on the human evolutionary tree. There you are, a completely different species that's not human at all, yet occupies a space on the human evolutionary tree. How can that be? Well, that's what evolution says, that fish became men that became astronauts. So this just fits the evolutionary model. And then we can be 99% sure it's not related to Homo erectus and nearly 100% chance it isn't a malformed Homo sapien. Okay, but when we will look at some other evidence, you will discover that how in the world can they be 99% sure? It's all based on conjecture. There's no scientific evidence. It says the study was published in the Journal of Human Evolution, and there you go. That's it. But remember what the title says. Flores man hobbits found in Indonesia were definitely not early humans. Scientists confirm. All right, now I want to show you something. So you look this up on Wikipedia. Now, I know some of you are already screaming, Wikipedia is not reliable. Well, that's true in some cases. But what I look for in a Wikipedia article, first of all, is it extensive? And this is very extensive. Second of all, is it balanced? And it is. I mean, it tells you all the ins and outs, ups and downs, the attacks against it, the comparisons, all the possibilities of what it could be other than what they're saying. So it's extremely extensive and it's balanced. The other thing that I look for is it heavily referenced? And of course, you can see all the references. I mean, just all the way through the article, almost every statement that's made. Here's one with 3 references. Every statement that's made is referenced. So, so we can start there and we can look at the statements that are made and then look at the references. By the way, the references, as you will see, all of them come from secular sources, mainstream sources, scientific sources, archaeological sources, etc. So that's interesting. All right, but what I wanted to introduce you to was this part of the Wikipedia article. And it is, wait a minute, I think I passed it. Here it is. Scandal over specimen damage. How many times have we come across a proclaimed archaeological evolutionary find, missing link, and there's scandal involved or damage to the specimen involved? And then later we discover there was all kinds of hoax attached to it. So look at this. In early December 2004, Indonesian paleanthropologist, and I can't pronounce the guy's name, Teku Jacob, removed most of the remains from their repository, Jakarta's National Research Center of Archaeology, with permission of only one of the project team directors, and this dude kept those remains for 3 months. And here's all the references to that. Some scientists expressed the fear that the important scientific evidence would be sequestered by a small group of scientists who neither allowed access by other scientists nor published their own research. In other words, they were hiding it from peer review. Oh, but wait. Jacob returned the remains on 23rd February 2005, so just a few months later, with portions severely damaged. And this was written in the Sydney Morning Herald. And then it says, and missing 2 leg bones. That was reported in The Scientist, to the worldwide consternation of his peers. Now, what's that about? But keep reading. Reports noted the condition of the returned remains, including long, deep cuts marking the lower edge of the jaw on both sides, said to be caused by a knife used to cut away the rubber mold. The chin of a second hobbit jaw was snapped off and glued back together. Whoever was responsible misaligned the pieces and put them at an incorrect angle. Wow. The pelvis was smashed, destroying details that reveal body shape, gait, and evolutionary history. Again, all of it referenced. This BBC News did an article on it. And causing the Discovery Team leader, Morwood, to remark, it's sickening. Jacob was greedy and acted totally irresponsibly. Again, in the Sydney Morning Herald. Then it goes on to say, Jacob, however, denied any wrongdoing. Oh, yeah, right. He stated that the damages occurred during transport back to Jakarta, despite the physical evidence to the contrary, that the jawbone had been broken while making a mold of the bones. And again, this is documented. In 2005, Indonesian officials forbade access to the cave where it was all found. Some news media, such as BBC, expressed the opinion, listen to this, that the reason for the restriction was to protect Jacob, who was considered Indonesia's king of paleoanthropology, from being proven to be wrong. Scientists were allowed to eventually return to the cave in 2007, shortly after Jacob's death. So there you have it, folks. They're afraid that this whole thing, even other scientists were afraid that this thing might turn out to be a bunch of junk science. And so the dude that discovered it, or apparently was involved in it, took the remains, broke some, got rid of some other I mean, this is unbelievable. And when you continue to read this Wikipedia article, you discover that there was no DNA extraction. Two teams attempted to extract DNA from a tooth discovered in 2003, but they were unsuccessful. And then it goes on to say, moreover, the heat generated by the high speed of the drill may have denatured the DNA or destroyed it. How convenient. So there's no DNA evidence. Yet the article proclaims, scientists confirm, definitely not early humans. Artist reconstructions of what horrendous. And they're so determined to say this is something, look at this, that this is something other than human, but it's one of our ancestors, and we now have proven it. Really? How have you proven it? All of the mushy language, it could be, most likely is, we think, we surmise, it's our theory that, but we're 99% sure. Well, folks, thank you for allowing me. I know this took a little while, but I just wanted to remind you once again, when you see this sensational stuff all over the news proclaiming that there is another piece of evolutionary, quote, evidence, look at it deeply, and you will discover the mushy, magical, mystical language of evolutionary junk science, and you will discover that these things are filled, they are rife with intrigue, destruction, hoaxes, greed. This is amazing, folks, yet this stuff is being taught to your children every day. Well, thank you for listening. This has been another Insight video from Pastor Carl Gallups. May the Lord bless you and keep you as you stand on the truth of His Word. When you abide in His Word and His Word abides in you, then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. God bless you.